The key linchpin for a market opportunity analysis, a marketing plan, or a marketing problem solving situation is designing a strategy going forward. So let's take a little look at the strategic marketing process and the steps involved in developing a strategy.
Strategy is the approach used to obtain a goal or an objective. The essence of strategy is to fit, select, discover, or create the appropriate approach to reach that objective. So if I have an objective of I want to be President of the United States, well, I need to come up with, given the situation and given those objectives, I need to come up with a strategy that is likely to make that happen. I have a funny story about one of my nephews. Many years ago, my nephews used to come and spend the summer with me. And we were having breakfast one morning with myself and another faculty member and Carl, one of my nephews. And the faculty member said to Carl, "Carl, what are you going to do when you grow up?" Carl said, "I'm going to be a rap star." The colleague of mine said, "Really? How are you going to make that happen?" He said, well, he lived in New York at the time, and he said, "Well, when I get a little bit older, I'm going to take the subway into New York City. Every weekend I'm going to sing on the street corners until I get discovered." Of course, I didn't think that that made much sense, but understand that this was an 8-year-old child who had a goal and had a strategy to actually reach that goal. It might not have been one that is extremely likely, but at least he had a strategy to reach that goal. All right, understand that strategies are objective specific. The objectives and the situation analysis determine what strategy you will use to get there. General George Patton, one of the famous generals from World War II, quote was, "One tries to make plans fit the circumstances." And this is a very important notion in strategy development. We often find people who want to use someone else's plan to fit their situation. Well, so-and-so did it this way. The fact is that plans need to be specific. The strategy needs to be specific to the individual circumstances that we face. For a strategy to be workable, it must satisfy 3 requirements. That is, it must help achieve coordination within the organization. That is, it must have information that tells the organization what we're going to accomplish together. It must define how we're going to allocate the resources that we have available. And at the end of the day, it needs to lead to a superior market position. That is something that the competitors can't do or that we can do better than the competitors. Selection are, of course, the objectives and the SWOT, which is the situation analysis, then the generic competitive strategy, a positioning, that is how we are going to sell our product compared to the competition, and then who we're going to market the product to, that is the target market. Well, we start by listing the 5 pieces we just discussed. That is the objectives, the SWOT, the generic strategy, which we'll talk about in just a little while, a position and target market. And of course, the way that we would do this is first we'd consider the objectives. The organization objectives frame the potential strategic alternatives. Then we need to consider the situation. What is it, where are we now, and how are we going to come up with a plan to get from where we are now to where we want to be? The generic strategy determines determination uses the SWOT to determine the best and logical strategic approaches that make the most sense. This will be either differentiation, focus, or cost leadership, and we'll have a lecture on that coming up very shortly. The unique selling proposition or reason to buy. This becomes the positioning statement for the product. Think about the brand new Buicks. The Buick company has decided that they want to market Buicks to younger people, and so their marketing campaign is that a Buick? Note that while the campaign might be catchy, it doesn't really create any reasons to buy a Buick. The final step in the process is the determination of the target market. Who are we going to sell our product or service to? While the process is presented as a set of steps in almost every situation, typically strategy development doesn't follow that sort of step. It's more of a eureka process. That is, we fit the pieces together and eventually we figure out how they all fit together in a way that best allows us to reach our goals and objectives.